everybody, Charis here. This is the last video I'll be doing before I leave on my camping trip. I'm in Idaho, on the edge of the Tetons, and I just flew in last night. And this morning I'm up drinking coffee. This black coffee, it's funny because I don't drink coffee because it hits me like a drug. And even when I do drink coffee, sometimes socially or after a big dinner, if I need to stay awake and I would get food coma or whatever, I don't drink coffee black, but drinking black coffee is kind of a symbol of my camping trips with Mike. So I am this morning drinking black coffee and kind of getting back into that whole sphere of experience. And what I want to talk to you guys about today, I'll show you the view that I have when I'm done chatting. But what I want to talk to you about is when you feel drawn to visit a natural spot, how you should absolutely do it, even if it's just for a little while. This trip is only going to be a couple days long, and that's okay. It's all that the people going with me, my sister, could get away for. So that's fine, and that's all that was needed. And for me, at least, I don't really know about my trips till I'm going to go. I was told earlier this summer, when I was told that I'd be traveling a lot over the next however long, I was not given a time frame, that I would only ever know 2 out. So 2 trips out where I was going. I would not ever know any more than that, so I just needed to get used to it, which is very difficult in the world that we live in and with the cultural associations and conditioning that we're given. However, once you get used to it and accept it, then actually it's kind of cool and fun, even though it is still pretty stressful. So, anyway, often people come to me and say, I feel really called to go visit, I don't know, whatever places. Often there are famous vortex-y kind of places like Shasta or Sedona or the Tetons or Europe, places in Europe that are holy or sacred or active, you know. And what happens when we go and visit these places is that, so the project right now is to activate our DNA, right? To activate the full 12 strand. Rather than just the 2-stranded helix, you want the 12 strands that kind of make this tube for divine intelligence and then pour through, and we will become ascended beings, essentially, which doesn't really mean popping out of this dimension. It means stretching up into lots of dimensions, and ascended beings can do things that all the ascended beings on the planet, who were then revered as like spiritual masters, have been able to do. So as we're doing this, we're doing it in concert with the planet, because one of the reasons that she agreed to incubate and nurture and facilitate in our creation and also contribute pieces of herself to help create us is because then we carry her codes as well. So as we activate, she activates. So if you feel called to go to a random place, even if it's just a place in your town, even if it's just a place in the park, by the water, on your sidewalk, whatever, go. It's very important that you go, not only for your development, but for everything's development, because remember, we're in a fractal universe. Things are vibrational. So say you're in the woods and you want to reach down and touch a rock. I found this in my shamanistic work with Kim Cochran, an amazing intuitive healer, a few years ago. She taught me a lot and we learned a lot together, and one of the things that we learned was that you can open amazing portals just by walking around. And when you feel the need to touch this knothole in the tree, a certain place, you do, and then you want to reach over and it's going to sound crazy, and I don't necessarily recommend this, go with what you know, pick off a piece of lichen and eat it, or reach down and touch a rock or something like that. What you're doing is your vibration is then encoding the things around you with your activations that you've already gotten, and then the things around you, especially if you're in a magical spot, although all of the earth is sacred in its own way, some of it more or less recognized conventionally, then that spot is also imbuing you with its magic, and so you're ending up creating this beautiful infinity symbol of ascension the whole way around. So right now, today is September 6th, I believe. Right now, what's happening is huge transitional times. So there are not very many people who can handle me when I'm going through a rough transition. My energy is pretty all over the place, and when I'm transitioning, since I help everyone else through transition, often what happens is the people who I'm close to get freaked out because my energy gets so intense. And since I can talk pretty much anyone out of their transitions when I'm having a really rough time, hardly anyone can actually help me because I've already thought of all the things that they would say. And that's been true for me ever since I was in high school, college. I actually had lost friends over in college who said, "Why won't you let us help you?" And I said, "Oh no, I'll let you help me. You're just not helping," which, isn't really the best thing to do. But I was in the middle of a crazy transition, so I can't feel that too much guilt about it. I was not really capable of doing more than that. And I wasn't mean about it, but I just wouldn't pretend that I was better if I wasn't better. So anyway, Amy Landerman, who's an intuitive numerologist, is one of my best friends, and she is amazing, and I would highly recommend connecting with her if you would like one of her services. I'll put her link in the info for this video. But I kind of 911'd her and said, "I'm freaking out right now. Can you help me?" And she told me how generally this month is going to be hugely transformative for a lot of people, but for me specifically with my numbers and my codes, it's going to be really intense. So I was going through intense anger. I mean rage. I mean murderous rage. And not at anything specifically, just at the universe. I felt like I've been working so hard and I've been working nonstop all the time. And where's my reward? Where's the balance of it? It just feels like the work gets harder and harder in these moments of transition. It feels like the work gets harder and harder and nothing comes through and nothing helps me. And so what am I supposed to do? And yes, we all go through this. I go through this. And the thing about me is I have intense emotions. So when I go through it, I really go through it. So don't think that because I sit here and meditate before I create these videos for you guys and I'm always in my space, because that's my responsibility in creating these videos for you, is to give you the best ascension codes that I can, that I never go through this stuff. I go through this stuff. It kind of reminds me of one of the newer Star Treks when they're talking about the Vulcans, and they say, we don't feel less emotions than everyone else. We actually feel more, so we have to control them more. And that's how I feel sometimes. So anyway, I'm going through this crazy time, and she talked me down, or she talked me through, I guess, and helped facilitate my traveling through. And by the end, we were laughing and being silly and still talking smack to the universe, but, back to calibration with normalcy, to whatever extent normalcy even means. And then the next day, which was yesterday, which was the day that I flew here, which I also had to do a lot of preparations into flying here, because one of the things about my travel is that usually I don't know where I'm going in enough time to really fully prepare until it's time to go. And I don't even have time to think about it till I'm actually packing my bags and picking up things to eat on the trip and actually driving around town and getting ready and going. And so what I then discovered, which I've discovered before, but I forget, because I would rather be on the all is well, let's blast awesomeness and light all over the planet and not really get into the rage spot. I was in rage again. Not, like I said, not directed outward at anyone, just anger, just really intense kind of strength and no nonsense, no BS, whatever. I have no pity for anyone who's not doing their thing to the best that they can. That's one of my struggles, is I have impatience with people who are spiritually not pushing it. But then again, it's my path to spiritually push it, so I can't really judge other people. But when I'm in my spot, that's one of the things I do. So I'm also noticing as I'm going around that there is an immense amount of power. I felt like I could do anything. And even to the extent that I had to be careful, because I have had interesting coincidences with emotional ways that I felt and then things that have happened in the world around me. So I did feel the need to be careful. But one thing that I noticed as I was driving around and doing my errands and stuff was that my intuition, the way that it works for me, which is through emotion and feeling, and somewhat through clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, that kind of stuff, but mostly it translates through, well, I don't want to say mostly, but the majority of what I sense translate through emotional feeling. So if I've given you a reading, that I'll tell you how things feel, and then I can translate them to thoughts, events, stuff like that, because I've learned over the years how to decode some of this stuff. But generally it starts off with a feeling. You feel like this, the people around you feel like this, you experience the world in this way through feeling. And I also see the world in archetypal form, so I see the world kind of like storybooks, so I can tell you you're a mermaid, or you're a wizard, or you're a princess in a tower and you have to get out, that kind of thing. And so I was noticing that I could feel things. There was a moment that I felt like I could feel so strongly that I didn't do this, that I could have driven, because I was driving at the moment, I could have driven with my eyes closed. Because I could feel, it was kind of like in the Matrix movies when he shuts his eyes and you just see the Matrix. So he doesn't need to see with his eyes, he can just see everything that's going on. And I remembered that feeling from when I was in my infancy in this body on this planet. And I know that I turned it off when I was a kid because I wanted to have friends and I wanted to be socially acceptable and I didn't want to be all alone, which happens anyway. You guys know that if you walk one of these paths, sometimes you're insanely alone and it's just part of it. And then you're also not because your guides are always there, but there are periods of feeling incredibly solitary and like no one else in the world is there for you and with you. So I didn't want that, so I turned a lot of this stuff off. And then I was actually talking to my friend, Victoria Costa, who I teach a bunch of classes with and do retreats with and stuff, and telling her how I was feeling yesterday, and she said, isn't that hard to feel everyone's feelings? Because I started experimenting with it and saying, okay, fine, I want to read the person in that car. As I was coming up alongside a car, and I would say, okay, well, it's a young woman, and she feels like this and this and this about her life, and da-da-da. And then I would pull up next to the car, and sure enough, I would look over, and there would be a young woman driving. And so as much as I could corroborate just by visuals alone, it would. And it was fun, and it was interesting. And so when Victoria asked me, isn't that hard? Isn't that overwhelming? I told her the truth, which was actually, it's harder and more overwhelming to have squashed this down for the past 29, 28, however many years, since I'm 30 now, and I started it when I was really small. I remember bigger pieces when I was 5 or 6. I remember clamping down and not seeing my guides anymore, and I remember doing things like that. But from the time I was really little, I started turning it down, so that I could be here and interact here. But what's happening now is we're activating these DNAs, is that our DNAs, these DNA strands, is that our interaction is able to expand. And so there, you don't have to make the choice anymore of either being here and interacting here or being your true self. You can be your true self and also interact here because we've gotten the codes of here, this dimension in Gaia, interacting with the people who do live here and are not interested in doing all the other stuff enough so that we can branch out again and then come back and interact here when we want to, while we're still perceiving all this stuff. So I got to experiment with it yesterday. I was flying and going through the airport and talking to other people, and I had some of the most amazing discussions that I've ever had on the planes. I met some amazing people. Truly eye-opening stuff, and I knew that we were sharing information that was life-changing for both of us, and we knew in the moment and we talked about it. And so there are things that end up coming through to help you. So now this trip to the Tetons, I've been given certain meditations to do. Essentially what I have to do is, because the Tetons are already magical, there's already a lot of stuff going on, but there are apparently some beings, some elemental type beings that live down deep in the earth under the Tetons that have been sleeping for a long time and have asked me to kind of come and kind of froth up the energy as if you're making a meringue out of egg, and then bring down some sky energy and connect it and kind of open these certain spots. I don't know where they're going to be. I just know that I have to go and meditate, and I'll know when it's time to say, hey guys, hang on a second, and go off the path and sit for 10 or 15 minutes and do my thing and then come back. But last night when I was sleeping, I wasn't really sleeping because I slept out in a tent in the yard here under the stars to get used to sleeping outside and to get my cat used to sleeping outside because she's coming. And the entire night was instruction because the stars are huge over me and it was super intense and amazing and beautiful. And there was a woman, an extraterrestrial, talking to me and giving me instructions about how, when I'm telling you guys the DNA codes, when they're activated in us and we come to certain spots that we're attracted to, we then mutually expand faster because we're activating that particular spot on Gaia. It's like on your body. If you have itch that needs to be scratched, you are the finger that scratches the itch. The itch is the spot on Gaia that's calling you. So your presence there and whatever you feel inspired to do while you're there scratches this itch. So what I would like to tell you guys to do, well, I don't know what's going to happen in Tetons here. I'll try to record more. This will be the last video I make before I actually leave. And I'll upload them when I get back on Sunday night or Monday morning. But what I would like to tell you guys to do is go. Start small. Maybe you can't go to Ireland tomorrow if that's where you want to go and you live here in the U.S. But you can start small and start listening to those inner urges within you and seeing what happens, because I told you I went through this crazy anger, frustration thing, which you know is a block. You know it's you getting through this crazy thing, and then once you're through it, you've cleared it and you're good. And afterward, I got that huge reward yesterday of that intense power surge coming back that I haven't had for decades, right? So it's really interesting to note your own progress, to pay attention to what you're being called to see, experience, do, create, and to trust it, and to be able to listen to it. And some of you, it's easier to meditate than others, but even if it's hard for you to actually sit down and do the meditation thing, then try to get yourself quiet and still. Go outside, wait till you feel that clean feeling inside, and then go from there. Anyway, that's what I have for you guys today. I'm going to show you what I have. It's this field of, well, this little tiny field of this plant here, and the mountains back there. And then where I'm going to be is there, I believe. I'm not exactly sure. Since Mike's such an amazing guide, I don't really ask questions. I just let him tell me where to go, and I go wherever he tells me to go. Anyway, go in peace, guys. Have a beautiful, what's today? Weekend? And I'll be posting what happens very soon. I don't know. So far, it's been awesome and incredible and amazing, so I'm just going to assume that it's going to continue to be that way. But I will talk to you again very soon.